Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah.
A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to Flying with the Foam on HJN. So for today, here we got some more reviews set upon. By just opening this notepad here, I might as well confirm that we're at episode 649. And I also can't forget to mention that, well, today's pick is gonna be this thing. This, as a whole, is the Shellstrike. The Shellstrike DS6. Now, DS6 supposedly refers to the fact that this is one of those new generation blasters that happens to use shells with spaces for 3 darts. And this is something that has been adapted before. If you don't remember the Zombie Strike Sledge Fire, then well, that blaster itself had shells that were in fact like this. They were a bit more slimmer in shape, and they were also a bit more cheaply made in a way. But these shells are just Hasbro's little package to ensure that the shells themselves are going to be making a comeback, as it turns out. And after about 7 years, that's exactly what happens. It started with the trilogy DS15, as it was called. And this is in fact the DS6, mainly because this does in fact fit 2 shells, 6 darts in here. But of course you have an extra shell that you could be able to fit inside the chamber. So it probably would have made a little more sense to call it the DS9 for this very reason. Not that I'm not really complaining about it though. I mean, my expectations when it comes to the names and the like mostly have to do with the trademarks. Let's say if there was another blaster out there that were to get released at some point later on that were to take on the name Shellstrike, then well, this baby gets to keep the name Shellstrike because this was, at the time, the only blaster that was called the Shellstrike. And the one that would be released later on, not that I'm saying that there ever will be another one out there, but in case that one were to take the name Shellstrike, I'd have it changed right away. That's basically the principle that I follow every single day. I've been doing it for a very long time, and right now, I gotta say that expectations are really starting to get even higher than usual, and my standards are also starting to they are also starting to get a bit low at this point. Because as it turns out, this is in fact a blaster that is in fact rightfully so in a place to be called the Shellstrike. Because it is in fact a blaster that uses shells, much like the trilogy. And of course we can't forget to mention the Sledge Fire, because it was at the time the only blaster that we had that had shells in it. It was basically their way of competing against some other toy companies out there like Buzzbee and other brands here and there. But these shells are certainly a lot different in most ways compared to the Sledge Fire's shells themselves. Because as I've mentioned before, those ones were not in fact like these new ones here. These ones are a bit thicker in design, a bit more tough and durable, so you could be able to have some rough play with them if you so desire. Of course they still fit 3 darts in there at a time like the Sledge Fires did back then, but these ones certainly have a bit more character built into them. A lot more character built into them. Of course, you could always load them up to, well, 3, like I have all 3 of them loaded right here. But you could also put in just 1 dart, or 2, if you wanted to. If you wanted to create a buckshot sledge sort of shell, or just a single shot shell, much like a rifle round that would be used in Call of Duty World War II, then that's also an option that you could take on. But for me, I do like to keep the the shells loaded with all 3 of them in the chamber. So that's all 3 of the shells right here. But of course I will also say that the functionality is pretty nice as well. To load the shells in, you just insert it into the chamber, then close it, and then prime it back. Of course, this style of priming right here has certainly been around for some time. If you don't remember some blasters out there, like the Fuse Fire, they use this kind of priming where you pull back on the small tab right here, pull it back, and then automatically retracts. As a matter of fact, it's starting to become a little more common nowadays with this exact sort of priming motion. I don't really know a specific name for it or what it's usually referred to as, but I should say that it's pretty unique for what it is. We got more blasters that now have this auto-retracting sort of priming to it. And as a result, I'd say that it's a pretty good touch. But the real good business about the fact that we now have some more shell blasters in the lineup now, it means that we could get more opportunities to have newer blasters, which will then take some of the older blasters as big as trademarks to them. If we could get the new generation shells, there's a likelihood that we could also get ourselves new generation bows here and there. As in bows that would fire arrows. But that's already been taken up pretty much by blasters like the Wrathbolt, Dreadbolt, and, well, Courage Crossbow with the Nerf bolts, as I call them. They're not really arrows in a way, but they sure are pretty fun if you can use them properly. But that's basically my talks on the Shellstrike DS6. And that's pretty much a good sign that we might actually get more shell blasters here in more recent times. But if you want to see more go down on my channel, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.